So there's this like really interesting paradox with healing and growth, which is recognizing areas that you have opportunities to grow in, get better, while balancing out with accepting who you are. It's like, if we go all in the, oh, there's so much wrong with me, I've got to change everything, I literally got to be a completely different person, that is not healthy. And then if you're in the like, I'm perfect exactly as I am, total radical 100% self acceptance, I don't need to change a thing, that can be a problem in a different direction. So I've noticed this a lot in parenting, particularly because you have this little person. For me, it's like a little. I got this little dude in front of me, and over a process of almost 2 decades, I gotta help him become who he's gonna be, or at least give him the foundation for him to do that. And I've got to like accept him at every like stage where he's at, what he's doing, how he is, but also be kind of like, gently laying that groundwork, that foundation, building those habits for the future. It's like, guys, oh my gosh, it is not easy. Just parenting in general is not easy, but like this balance to have with another person who's completely dependent on you. And so there's something in psychology, it's called shadow work, where you kind of recognize like where you've adapted psychologically, in ways that you feel shame around, that aren't helpful maybe. Whenever we're like protecting ourselves, like that's usually what's getting activated. Is that, I forget, like the, Jung, Freud, it's like an official word for it. But anyway, particularly if you have like a background of child abuse, and you learned some ways of coping in a not good situation, and those coping mechanisms help you survive, and then you become an adult and you're not in that situation anymore, and you don't need those coping, but you still have them. they're not necessarily, you go from the toxic environment to the non-toxic environment, and all the shit that you learn to deal with this environment not only doesn't work in this environment, but is toxic in this environment. Oh man. So there's this process of kind of recognizing within ourselves, like, oh wow, I've adapted to shame in some very specific ways, and maybe these ways aren't great. So like, how do I not do that? So I've noticed in myself that one of my areas for growth, one of my challenges, one of my opportunities for doing that shadow work, is that I can be very critical and judgmental, or at least I have been. And I'm working on shifting that. And one of the things that my ex said to me is, he was like, well, I might be judgmental, but I'm not judge vocal. And what he was communicating to me at the time is like, you can think these things, but like just don't say it. Which, to me it was like, oh my gosh. Like at the time I found that really mind blowing. And now looking back on it, I'm thinking, you know what though? I don't know that being judgmental in the first place, like, because that was a huge, issue in our relationship, was I felt like he wasn't being honest with me. And his perspective was like, why would I say hurtful things to you? I love and care about you. But it's like, why would you be with somebody you think these ways about? Like I don't understand this at all. So here, on my end, I'd be blurting, hurtful stuff out. And on the other hand, he wouldn't be saying stuff, or he would be saying stuff. And I'm like, that's not what you really think. You know, I feel like you are lying to me. And, you know, it's like, it's one thing to be interacting that way with Joe Schmo on the street, but like, I'm your partner. Like, you should be, you know, telling me what you really think and feel. But the thing is when he would tell me what he would really think and feel, it'd be horrible. And I didn't have an understanding at that time of just how toxic the critical, negative, judgmental way of perceiving the world is. Like, holy shit. It is, if you're trying to function in the world and that's your mind frame, and I'm not like saying like just you, I'm, you know, me too. You know, when we're coming from a place and we're constantly judging other people, constantly judging ourselves. Oh my God. It's like, and the crazy thing is we don't have to be in that mind space. You know, we can be like, not ignoring, but we can also like, let's be focusing on some awesome shit. Like, okay, I will say, like, I had this idea when I was a kid that once I became like 18, I could leave my house and like go out in the world, I would find like the good people. So I went out into the world and I felt so frustrated. I felt so isolated. I felt so alone all the time because it didn't seem like it seemed like everybody was fucked up. And I was just like, where are the healthy people? Where are they? You know, part of it is that, you know, when we're not in a healthy space, we're attracting to ourselves people that are not in a healthy space. But a part of it is if my perception filter is looking for the negative always, that's what I'm gonna see. I mean, that literally is what it is, you know. Our perception filter affects where we put our focus, what information we take in. Our beliefs help us process that information to come to a conclusion, which reinforces the whole shebang all over again. So I and other people, and, you know, usually often abusive people, you know, there's this whole, like, when we're not in this healthy place, when we're the critical, negative, judgmental, like, oh my gosh, it is toxic. It will eat you away on the inside. It eats away at every relationship. Because, think about it. You have this precious little person in front of you. My son, he's 8 now. He just turned 8. He doesn't know how to do everything. He's literally a kid. His job is literally not to know everything. And to, you know, not do things perfectly. Like, even that idea of doing a thing perfectly. But you know what I mean? Like, he is a kid. And to kind of, you know, sometimes adults, we get into this habit of looking at kids and going like, oh, you know, why aren't you behaving? You know, or why aren't you doing these things? I mean, good God, imagine if we flip it, you know, and we engage with these precious little human beings that we love from a space of like recognizing, you know, oh man, look at all these things that you were doing amazingly. And again, you don't like have to ignore the other stuff, you know, but also we really need to come to an understanding that there is no perfect person. Maybe the Dalai Lama, but I feel like even the Dalai Lama would be like, no, of course not, I'm not perfect. You know what I mean? Like, everybody is this sort of like, you know, we come together, we piece together kind of who we are based on our experiences and our past and our ways of thinking and like what, you know, what messages we take in from, let's say, our favorite media or movies or something. And it's just sort of this like very unique pastiche of beingness. And then also we're not even necessarily that stuff because there's the who we are, which is separate, because this will always change as we go through life, you know, but the who we are stays the same. I don't even want to say it's our thinking self because the thinking self is also kind of a construct. You know, we put that together. The who we are, let's say. So I'm noticing in myself this, like, how do I balance recognizing, like, ooh, I've got, let's say, this bad habit of a coping mechanism that I developed when I was a kid that helped me, but that is not helpful now. And I want to accept myself while holding space and recognizing, like, I have areas for improvement. So, not to Oprah everybody, but self-compassion, that's where it's at, you know. Fucking dumping the idea that there is anybody perfect, doing anything perfectly, making the right choices. Like, oh my gosh, you know. It's the journey. There's this YouTuber I watch, and every once in a while he's really contemptuous when he describes certain people. I'm like, I really like a lot of his information, but also every time it gets contemptuous, I feel it in my soul. I'm like, please stop. You know. John Gottman, the Gottman Institute, they identify like 4 horsemen of the relationship apocalypse, 4 things that are gonna like undermine, you know, healthy living relationships, and like contempt is number 1. It's contempt, criticism, stonewalling, and defensiveness. And like literally every single element was present in my last relationship in one form or another. Like they will eat your relationship up. So anyway, you know, I've noticed before of these, like he'll get contemptuous, and I just I feel it. I'm like, oh, why? Don't do that. And today or yesterday, I forget, he said something like, I know because I was this person. And I was like, ding, ding, ding. I know what's going on now. He has contempt for who he used to be. That's why he's conveying this information in this particular way, because he doesn't like how he used to be and is pushing it away, and there's a lot of shame there, and there's that contempt. And it was like, okay, guys, we gotta recognize nobody starts at the end. We all start at the beginning. My son is constantly like, Mama, how come you know how to do all this stuff? Why are you better than me at building an airplane? And I'm like, dude, I'm 38. I should be better. I've done it a little bit longer. I have built this skill. You know, I've had a lot of practice. You know, you too will get better, you know, as you do it more, you know. It's a life experience. We really, I've said this before in other videos, but we really don't respect the process of like healing or life. You know, we just expect people to like, oh, it's time for you to be healed. Okay. Change who you are, be healed. Let go, forgive. You'll be healed. Without having any respect for like healing's a process, and that, you know, those things are a result of healing, not a cause. But just really in general, I'm recognizing in others and in myself, you know, we have such unrealistic expectations for people. And the more I kind of go down this shadow work path, let's say, it's really about, from what I can tell, it's really about good boundaries and compassion. Compassion for ourselves, compassion for others. It's not just, oh, I'm being judgmental, but I'm not like saying it. It's maybe we aren't judgmental in the first place. Maybe we have compassion, and that's not to say like not being discerning. Like we need to pay attention, but the judginess comes from like a really different place. Hold on, Alexa, what's the definition of judgmental?
The adjective judgmental is usually defined as involving the use or exercise of an act or instance of judging. For more, Ask me to give you more definitions for judgmental.
The Alexa was not helpful. The Alexa was like, it's being judging. It's the act of being judging. Thanks, Alexa. Anyway, there's a different, discernment is paying attention, but not necessarily attributing the good badness to it, right? That seems to be a little bit of a trap. And annoyingly, it's something that a lot of spiritual healers and teachings and whatever kind of approach in many different ways. I feel like in Christianity, it'll be like, judge not lest you be judged, or leave it up to God, so it's not like don't be judgmental necessarily. It's more like, that's not your lane, don't be judgmental because that's not your responsibility. That's not your area. You be focused on your own stuff. Whereas, other paradigms are like, there is no good and bad. And when we recognize that there is no good and bad, we don't have this dichotomy, and we can be in a state of accepting things how they are without having to label them a specific way, then we're happier. So there's that. You approach it that way. But really the underlying, an underlying element of any of it is that the judgmental is not helpful. It isn't, though. So just kind of, I think a really good example. No, I'm not even talking about that. That's a whole other video. So anyway, recognizing, and accepting ourselves, accepting other people, accepting life, and not attaching such heavy stuff to it. It's a much easier way to live. Now, again, a lot of this is for if you're not in a crisis. If you are actively in this crisis situation, if you are actively dealing with trauma, if you are actively being abused, this is not the information for you. You know what I mean? Like if you, in order to get out of that, need to go, oh my gosh, I gotta judge this person as abusive and bad, and that's what I need to get away from this. I mean, do what you gotta do, The goal is that we ourselves are not hurting other people. Now, granted, anytime you're in any relationship in life, just because when we're in relationships, we're open and vulnerable, there will be something, again, there is no perfection. There's no way to avoid pain or to only be happy. Well, that's a whole other thing. But, it's like the human experience is the whole rainbow of the human experience. So it's not only positive emotions, it's the non-positive, let's say. So when we're in relationships and we're open and vulnerable with people, there's going to be stuff that happens. I mean, both ways, the positive and the non-positive. And that's okay. The more centered and grounded we get in ourselves, the better we're able to handle what comes up. So, that's a skill to build. While accepting ourselves, walking that line, kind of that, what is it? Is it Buddhism or it's Eastern thought? A koan, I think, a koan where you contemplate a paradox and as you do it, you find truth. I feel like it's kind of in line with that. Where you're like, oh, these things don't go together, but somehow they do if I just contemplate it enough. But as we interact with our children or our loved ones, if we're coming from a judgmental, critical place, we end up doing a thing called defining and labeling them, which can be a form of emotional abuse, when we're all, you're this. As parents, we have to mirror back to our children who they are. And if we're only mirroring back to them negative stuff, first of all, what kind of self-concept would they build? But secondly, I mean, they're children, you know, they're literally learning how to be people. And the amazing thing is, the most important stuff, like, you know, we can talk at kids all day long, but a lot of the stuff they're doing on their own. And they're doing it because they're watching other people in their life doing it. So, you know, if we tell our kids to do a thing, but we're not doing it, they're not going to do it either. My favorite are the studies on screen time, which basically say it doesn't matter how you raise your kids in terms of screen time, because what they're going to end up doing is just doing what their parents do. So however you do screen time, regardless of what rules you have for them, is how they're going to do screen time, which makes sense. You know, we do as I say, not as I do. That doesn't work. Because they learn by watching how other people are in the world. So that's one of the things that I'm kind of focusing on. You know, I've been doing a lot of like self-acceptance work, and now I want to kind of shift to, okay, I have a personal area for growth, being more accepting and compassionate towards myself and others, and to not automatically go to a critical place. Particularly, I mean, you know, we're in relationships with people we love and care about, but if we're coming from a negative paradigm, we're only looking for the bad, then we're literally tearing apart the people we love. Like, what? No. We're tearing ourselves apart. We're tearing them apart. Like, and then we go, why does everyone suck? Why are there no perfect people in the world? It's unsustainable, and it's not real. It's an illusion. It's not accepting human beings as whole, complete people. But if we have good boundaries and we have compassion, we can be in healthy, happy relationships. Anyway, that is the goal. That's where we're moving towards. And I just thought I would, one of the reasons why I do these videos is because, you know, a lot of times you read these articles that are like, oh, do this to be better. And you're like, okay, I'll try. I don't know what it looks like. So that's what we're doing here. We're doing it together. Anyway, I hope you all have a great night. I'll talk to you next time.